All right, so here's one idea that modern society is absolutely correct about, regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum. If you're a man, you're dangerous, not hypothetically, not metaphorically, actually dangerous. And the real danger isn't whether that's true. The real danger is that you don't know how you're dangerous because there are only two options. Either number one, you're dangerous in the way a fireman or a soldier is dangerous. In other words, capable of running toward what destroys other people and capable of smashing something bad before it spreads. Or you're dangerous in the way a gas leak is dangerous. Silent, inward, corrosive, poisoning the room while convincing yourself nothing is actually happening. And there is no third category called harmless. Now, before I go further, I'd like to explain why there seems to be this effort to destroy masculinity, particularly by universities, intellectuals, and the media. You see, actual men are dangerous to modern liberalism, and that's not an abstract idea or some sort of valid threat. Men, males, masculinity represent forces that cannot be fully managed. They can't be fully predicted or administered, especially Christian men. And modern liberalism, especially in its late stage institutional form, is built almost entirely around systems management because modern liberalism is a system that requires predictability. At its core, it assumes society can be engineered, behavior can be shaped by incentives, problems can be solved by policy, by language, and by systems, i.e., more government. Conflict can be minimized through regulation and consensus, and when that fails, threat of institutional punishment. But this works only if people are legible, compliant, emotionally regulated, non-transgressive, risk-averse, and physically weak. In other words, female, or very seriously feminine. Masculine traits, by contrast, especially in young men, are the opposite. Risk-seeking, competitiveness, status-oriented, confrontational, willing to break things to see what's inside. Any normal man might punch you in the face if you upset him, not as a social construct or some part of a bad society or cultural, but as a natural biological response to a stimulus. This isn't evil, this is raw energy. But raw energy is terrifying to systems that depend on stability. You don't believe me? Just cross the wires on an electrical transformer and see what happens. The thing explodes. In other words, the transformer represents stability, cross wires, raw energy, you get the point. Modern culture has decided that the solution to male violence is male neutralization. The goal is to make men safe, which actually means less decisive, less confrontational, less forceful, less sure of themselves, or sure of anything for that matter. And this is sold as progress. It's actually negligence. Because the attempt to make a man harmless doesn't remove his aggression, it only removes the direction of it. Anger, aggression, ambition, sexual energy, competitiveness, these do not disappear when you shame them. They simply turn inward or sideways, or they go subterranean, and then they metastasize. And a man who is no longer permitted to be dangerous against evil will eventually become dangerous to himself, or he'll become dangerous to the weaker. A man with no outward mission becomes inwardly hostile, and he can't act decisively without being accused of domination. He can't desire openly without being accused of entitlement. He can't assert truth. He can't speak truth without being accused of aggression, or the neutered version of that, which is called mansplaining or some shit. He learns the trick of existing in modern society, self-censorship disguised as virtue. Suddenly he's crossing his legs and he's talking an octave higher around women. But energy doesn't vanish, it seeks an outlet. So the aggression turns into cynicism, irony is armor, passive contempt, pornography instead of pursuit, alcohol and drugs instead of risk, sarcasm and gossip instead of courage. And eventually, nihilism. Because if your strength is always a problem, then existence itself starts to feel like an accusation. And here's the part that doesn't get discussed because it's uncomfortable. A man who cannot aim his strength outward will aim it inward. And that is not gentleness. That is self-destruction. This is why so much male despair doesn't look like sadness. It looks like apathy. It looks like withdrawal, like bitterness, like a dead-eyed humor. slow spiritual erosion. The man becomes dangerous not because he lashes out, but because he collapses inward and he takes everyone down with him. A nihilistic man is not neutral. A cynical man is not safe. A man who believes in nothing will eventually destroy something, if only himself. And religion is one of the last institutions that refuses to castrate men, which should terrify you for multiple reasons. Catholic theology is the only framework that actually confronts the problem of masculinity without evasion. No other system I've encountered, political, therapeutic, ideological, or religious, allows men to remain fully dangerous while simultaneously binding that danger to an objective moral limit. Limits that are not negotiable, not subjective, and not managed by consensus. Or, by contrast, the only system that doesn't weaponize them into radicals. Catholic theology does not suppress masculine power. It disciplines it. It does not deny aggression. It consecrates it. It does not aim at safety. It aims at sanctity, which is a very different project. Holiness doesn't mean the absence of power. It means power under obedience. Not obedience to public opinion, not obedience to ideology, obedience to God. And this is where Mary, the Mother of God, enters the picture, not as a sentimental figure, but as a structural correction to male chaos. Now, even if you set aside the religious belief entirely, consider this as a psychological and civilizational model rather than a devotional claim. First, Mary is the ultimate antidote to what people now call toxic masculinity, to the extent that that's a real thing. Not because she weakens men, but because she explains them. Masculinity at its core does not exist to create. It exists to protect what it cannot create: life, meaning, order, the fragile good that shows up without asking permission. And without a clear image of what that good is, masculine strength either turns predatory or implodes inward. So Mary functions as that image, the image of the protected. She is the human figure who makes sense of restraint without humiliation. She makes sense of strength without domination and sacrifice without resentment. She is the model that tells masculine power where to aim and, just as importantly, where not to aim. Without a figure like this, masculine energy has nowhere stable to orient itself. It oscillates between cruelty and self-erasure, between aggression and nihilism. With her, strength becomes intelligible, directed, and reliable. What she teaches, whether you accept the theology or not, is the hardest lesson masculinity has to learn. How to receive without collapsing, how to submit without disappearing, and how to be strong without needing to conquer. This is not passivity. This is not abdication. This is total reception. And without that, no amount of technique, therapy, politics, optimization will ever quite hold, which is absolutely unbearable to toxic masculinity, because toxic masculinity equates reception with weakness. But the truth is harsher and more demanding. If you cannot receive, you cannot be trusted with power. Mary's yes is not passive. It's precise. She does not grasp. She does not dominate. She does not flinch. She stands beneath the weight of God, God himself entering history, and does not try to control it. Fiat voluntas tua. Let it be done to me according to your will. That posture, strength that kneels without disappearing, is the posture toxic masculinity cannot achieve. So we return to the original claim now. Clarified. You are dangerous, but you're dangerous in one of two ways. Either you're dangerous because you can confront evil, absorb risk, act decisively, carry weight without becoming cruel, and you can smash what's bad in this world. Or you're dangerous because you're unused. Your strength rots inside you. It leaks out as contempt, despair, and quiet violence. You're cynical. You're nihilistic. Christianity does not ask you to choose between aggression and submission. It asks you to choose what your aggression serves, where to aim your aggression. The most frightening men are not the strong ones. They are the men who were never taught what their strength is for. And the most stable men are not the gentle ones, by no means. They are the men who learn through obedience, through sacrifice, and through Marian humility how to be dangerous only in the right direction. You are dangerous. The only real question is, who or what are you dangerous for?